6. Star Trek. The original series Season 1 episodes you can completely skip. When Star Trek, the original series, debuted in 1966, it was unlike anything television had ever seen. It offered philosophical debates disguised as space adventures, asked moral questions about humanity's future, and gave viewers Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, and Dr. McCoy, the holy trinity of Starfleet charisma. But as much as Season 1 of Star Trek delivered all-time classics like Balance of Terror and The City on the Edge of Forever, not every episode hit warp speed. Some outings are clunky, tonally inconsistent, or simply dull compared to the boldness of the show at its best. And while completists may argue that every episode has value, casual viewers looking to explore Star Trek for the first time can safely jettison a few weaker installments without missing any critical character development or lore. Here are 6 episodes from Star Trek, the original series Season 1 that you can completely skip without guilt. 1. The Man Trap, Episode 1. It's almost cruel to say you can skip the very first aired episode of Star Trek, but the truth is this: The Man Trap is not a great introduction. NBC famously chose this as the series premiere because they wanted a monster of the week story, and while the Salt Vampire is memorable in design, the episode feels more like The Twilight Zone than the nuanced science fiction Roddenberry envisioned. The plot, an alien that sucks salt from its victims while shape-shifting into familiar faces, feels like it belongs to a pulp sci-fi magazine. More importantly, it doesn't capture the dynamic between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy the way later episodes would. Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot, or even Balance of Terror would have been better openers. If you're watching Season 1 today, The Man Trap is interesting as a historical curiosity but not essential viewing. It's a relic of NBC's attempt to force Star Trek into being a creature feature instead of the philosophical show it became. Skip it unless you want to see Star Trek's network-mandated awkward first step. 2. Mudd's Women, Episode 6. Harcourt Fenton Mudd is one of Trek's most infamous comic rogues, and while Roger C. Carmel's performance is certainly entertaining, Mudd's Women is a painfully dated hour of television. The plot revolves around Mudd trafficking women across the galaxy, selling them essentially as mail order brides, with a Venus drug that makes them irresistibly beautiful. Even in the 1960s, the story felt creaky, but today it lands like a shuttle crash. The women characters are reduced to stereotypes, and the episode indulges in more leering than progressive storytelling. While the concept of exploring beauty, desire, and self-worth could have been powerful, it's buried beneath camp and sexism. Mudd would return in I, Mudd in Season 2 in a much stronger comedic outing. That episode captures the roguish charm and humor of the character without the uncomfortable premise. Skip Mudd's Women and meet Harry Mudd later when the writers finally figure out what to do with him. 3. The Alternative Factor, Episode 27. If there's one word that describes the alternative factor, it's confusing. This episode is infamous among Trekkies for being nearly incomprehensible, largely because of behind-the-scenes issues. The original script was heavily rewritten after the actress, cast as Lazarus's love interest, was dropped at the last minute due to race-related casting concerns from NBC. What remains is a half-finished story with endless scenes of Lazarus ranting about his alternate universe self. The basic premise: 2 versions of the same man, one sane and one insane, battling across parallel universes, could have been compelling. Instead, the episode collapses under repetitive dialogue, dull pacing, and constant blink and you miss it special effects meant to signal universe shifts. Even the crew seems uninterested, and William Shatner plays Kirk here with less conviction than usual. By the time Lazarus hurls himself into an eternal fight with his counterpart, most viewers are already disengaged. Skip it unless you're making a list of the most baffling Star Trek episodes ever made. 4. The Corbomite Maneuver, Episode 10. Now, this is a controversial inclusion. Some fans consider the Corbomite Maneuver an early glimpse at Star Trek's diplomatic flair. But for new viewers, it's a slow, padded hour that drags its feet toward a payoff that doesn't quite land. The plot involves the Enterprise encountering a massive alien ship commanded by the mysterious Balak, who threatens their destruction. Kirk bluffs his way out with the famous Corbomite Gambit, claiming his ship contains a substance that would destroy anyone who attacked it. Eventually, the alien is revealed to be a small childlike being played by Clint Howard, testing the Enterprise's intentions. On paper, this sounds like classic Trek. In execution, though, it's mostly long scenes of the crew staring at a view screen, tense music swelling while nothing much happens. The final twist is fun but doesn't justify the pacing. Compared to later episodes like Errand of Mercy or Arena, this feels like a rough draft of the Trek formula. Skip it, unless you're a completist who wants to see Clint Howard's oddball cameo. 5. The Squire of Gothos, Episode 17. Trellin, the flamboyant and mischievous alien who torments the Enterprise crew, has often been cited as a proto-Q, a powerful, godlike being with a theatrical flair for chaos. While that idea is interesting in retrospect, the actual episode is a mixed bag. Trellin forces Kirk and company into a series of bizarre games on his planet, summoning castles, swords, and 18th century costumes out of thin air. What should be whimsical often veers into camp, and the episode becomes repetitive fast. Kirk fights duels, Trellin monologues, and the crew sighs in frustration until Trellin's parents show up at the end and scold him like a naughty child. It's easy to see why later writers reimagine this archetype more successfully as Q in Star Trek: The Next Generation. But as far as Season 1 goes, The Squire of Gothos feels more like a self-indulgent stage play than compelling science fiction. Skip it unless you're deeply interested in Trek's evolutionary steps toward Q. 6. Shore Leave, Episode 15. On paper, Shore Leave sounds like a fun break from the usual space tension. The Enterprise crew beams down to a lush planet for some well-earned rest, only to discover their fantasies manifest into reality. In practice, it's one of the silliest episodes of Season 1. McCoy meets Alice in Wonderland. Sulu finds a samurai warrior. Kirk runs into his old Academy rival and even a former lover. The problem is that the episode never decides whether it's whimsical or menacing, so it just comes across as awkwardly goofy. The constant parade of random apparitions feels like filler, and the eventual explanation that the planet is an amusement park run by advanced caretakers lands with a shrug. Shore Leave is not offensive or confusing like some other weak episodes, but it's featherweight. When you're watching Season 1 for its gripping moral debates and space diplomacy, this episode feels like a detour into Saturday morning cartoon logic. Skip it unless you're in the mood for absurd fantasy sequences and Kirk wrestling a guy in a rabbit costume. The value of skipping. Of course, even bad Trek has its charms. There's campy fun in watching William Shatner chew scenery, or seeing the writers experiment with ideas that later series would refine. But the 6 episodes above represent Season 1's weakest links, stories that either fail to capture the essence of Star Trek or drag so much that they obscure the show's brilliance. Season 1 of the original series has 29 episodes, which can be a D,